What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Whole bunch of stuff to get into today. We're finally going to talk about the Tiny Metal situation with the allegations flying everywhere from an ex-employee where apparently they used funds from another very popular Kickstarter to really fund and complete development on Tiny Metal. It's a pretty serious set of allegations, and it looks like they're probably going to be going to court over defamation. So we'll get into that at the end of this show. It's kind of a longer conversation. Then we have to also look at Nintendo's projection of, well, 20 million Switch units for the next fiscal year. Now, before we get started, if you have not already, consider subscribing. We're trying our best to hit 70,000 subscribers before the end of the year, which is Monday. We'll see how that goes, but we are closing in on it, so we'll see how close we can get next Monday. But for now, let's get started. So Platinum Games, we've talked about them a bit because they, of course, are the ones behind Bayonetta. The Bayonetta collection of 1 and 2 is going to the Switch. Then, of course, Bayonetta 3 will be going to the Switch at some time, maybe 2018, more than likely 2019, though, considering they didn't show us a ton in kind of the teaser trailer. But hey, we got a Direct coming out more than likely, and there's also E3, so who knows at this point when it's coming out. But one of the things that I got kind of excited about when I saw this yesterday is that they're going to start working more than likely on what we are now still calling AA games. So think of like Lawbreakers, I guess, would be a AA game, or one of the more successful ones. Let's talk about a successful one. Hellblade would be considered a AA game or a self-published game. And I like this because, well, we all know what kind of influence publishers can have on their games. Just go look at Battlefront 2. We see what happens there when EA wants to kind of get in on the action and make sure the development is going how they want. Obviously, they have a bigger hand, but when publishers kind of sign on, they do have some influence with developers, and it's been really echoed by anyone who is self-publishing games. Specifically, this is why Ninja Theory with Hellblade wanted to do it, so they had no outside interference. It was what they wanted, and for the most part, they didn't have to sell as many either. They became profitable after really 500,000, I think, sales. They were profitable, and that's pretty good. If you can keep your costs down, well, you can make money even if you don't sell a ton, and it looks like Platinum Games wants to do something that will cost less than $10 million, somewhere in there, according to them, for developments. They even said that, hey, we don't have a ton of money. We're not a big publisher like an EA or a WB or something like that. It's just us. But they want to do something with a smaller, more intimate team, too. Something like 20 people. And that's, Ninja Theory didn't have a ton of people. It was around that. And they said because there wasn't, tons and tons of people, communication was a lot easier, and they could kind of share ideas throughout the office much faster than if you're in like different locations, you got different time zones and stuff, which is something that sometimes they run into with these larger games if there are several studios, for example, that are kind of working on it and they pass information back and forth. So I would love to see what Platinum Games is going to do here, but apparently, yeah, they're looking into doing some new IP that a few people are working on. 20 people compared to 400 is considered a few in the gaming space and less than a $10 million budget. I'm excited because I do think self-publishing will become kind of the future of game development. You don't have this big publisher telling you what to do or this is how you should do it and this is how we're going to market it. I think YouTube, gaming websites, and just online presence in general with Twitter is becoming large enough to where you can advertise it yourself. You don't need to go spend millions and millions of dollars on TV commercials nowadays when you can reach really your subset audience just with video influencers or even buying commercials on YouTube now. So I look forward to it. I would like to see what they can do, and when there's no publisher on top of them and it's all creative freedom for Platinum Games, let's see what they got. Next up, let's talk about Nintendo apparently saying they want to try to sell 20 million Switch units in the following fiscal year of 18, and that, of course, will start at the end of March. So April to the following April, beginning of April. So beginning of April to the end of March, essentially, is what they want to do. They want to get 20 million Switch units either shipped or, I guess, sold through in that time period. And this came from Tatsumi Kimishima himself when he spoke with Kyoto Shimbun about really the next year for the Switch. And what they want to do is, in that fiscal year, they want to do things like present games with different ways to play, maybe using things like the IR pointer, for example, maybe more motion controls, or just maybe different game ideas in general. Who knows? Nintendo is one of the most creative companies when it comes to creating games. I mean, look what they've done with Mario. They consistently reinvent the game, and recently they reinvented Zelda. So yeah, sure, they could probably come up with a bunch of different ways, even with their older IPs, to kind of play those games. They also talk about bolstering their DLC lineup, and yes, this makes sense because in their mind, they want to give more content throughout a game's life cycle, probably its first year. You release a game, and then throughout that year, you have DLC that comes out. It's a common practice, but it's one that some people don't like because they feel like stuff gets cut. Capcom definitely did this with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. There's no way they didn't cut some of that content out when new characters were coming out, a few weeks later or something? So the way Nintendo did it, though, with something like Zelda, where it was a full year of DLC, and people who were playing this past one said, hey, it's the DLC Pack 2, the big one, said, yeah, it doesn't seem like this would be cut. It seems like something they've probably been working on because it's larger and there's a good bit of content to it. So as long as they do it well, yes, DLC makes sense. Like I said, there's bad ways to do it, there's good ways to do it, but Nintendo has done it pretty well so far, and that obviously with the Switch will help to really elongate some of those lives of those games. You could even do more stuff with Mario Kart Deluxe right now, 8 Deluxe, since people buy that up in droves. Really, you could have tons of people still buying it or even downloading DLC for it just because your audience is there. So we'll look forward to this. I do think if Pokemon comes out in that fiscal year, and I think they're shooting for it, yeah, 20 million, no sweat. Probably closer to, honestly, I'm not even kidding, probably closer to 22 or 23, as long as they can keep making them. Next up, let's talk about Shin Megami Tensei on the Nintendo Switch. We did see this. They at least gave us a trailer. This was at the January presser. Remember that? They did this quick peek presser, and then they talked about it a little more with another very small trailer that was released. No gameplay. We haven't seen any gameplay. We feel like we've seen some visuals that second trailer, but no real gameplay, no plot details, nothing major. And it's starting to make more sense now because we at least got a little bit of a look into development. It seems like they're not very far on this at all. And this was during an interview with 4Gamer, and this was the producer for the Shin Megami series, Kazuki Yamai, and they said the development is very early on, and they want fans to be patient, but they said the game is currently in the scrap and build phase, where they're kind of trying new ideas, playing around with gameplay, with the RPG elements, seeing if it works. If it doesn't, you scrap it, you move on. And that seems to be where they are now, which is weird because they showed us the game, they revealed it to us, what's coming up on almost a year ago. I mean, it feels like this is like a Sony game at this point, and Sony likes to show off stuff 3 years before it's ready. I mean, when did we find out about Final Fantasy VII Remake? 2015? Yeah, it's gonna be 2018 soon. So, same with Spider-Man. I mean, any of these games, really. Last of Us 2 probably won't be out for a long time also, and it feels like Atlus maybe got a little too used to some of the Sony timetables in this case. Now, of course, we want it to be good, so I don't mind waiting. It's just a little odd that they showed it and seems like they're still trying to figure out the game. But hey, they want to get fans hyped, I guess. It's not like Atlus. Atlus is still bringing out a bunch of games, so it's not like it's like this is the one thing they're working on. So I can at least understand maybe they're a little limited at development teams right now because of some of the stuff they're making. But still, we'll see. Maybe we'll get more information, right? At the Direct, at E3, and maybe it is a 2019 release, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It would just be a little, I think there are a lot of people who really want it soon, right? Sooner later. So we'll have to see if they have any more information for us coming up in January, or I guess all the way to June. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Tiny Metal, at least the situation surrounding Tiny Metal. Now, there is a lot to this, so if you don't really know what's going on here, I'm going to get you caught up to speed very quickly, but it does involve what appears to be allegations that are leading to court, where a person looks to be getting sued for defamation. So here we go. Let's look at this situation all around Tiny Metal. Now, I've already shown you guys a couple of videos about Tiny Metal, really the game itself. Remember, this is the first game that Sony Unties will be publishing onto other systems, specifically a Sony division publishing a game onto a Nintendo system, even PC, but Nintendo seems to be the biggest deal. It came out on the Switch, came out on the PC, came out on the PS4, Yes, it's basically an Advanced Wars style game, and for the most part, it works fine. I've been playing it, and Evan's been playing it. Myself on the Switch, Evan on the PC. But before this game came out, there were some serious allegations being thrown around by a former employee. And what happened here was it seemed to stick heavily with the community because it kind of hit a sore spot with a Kickstarter that had a massive promises, but kind of fell apart and nothing's really come from it since then. Now on November 20th, a person by the name of Tariq Lacey posted on Facebook accusing the developers of Tiny Metal for using funds crowdfunded by another Kickstarter project named Project Phoenix. And this was part of the accusations here, quote, 2 months after I was hired at Area 35, I had learned that the company funded this project by running a scam through Kickstarter. They gathered several famous creators and ran a campaign known as Project Phoenix, then used the $1 million received from that campaign to fund Tiny Metal. Now after this all happened, Tariq goes on to kind of explain that the people who were alongside Project Phoenix was kind of stringing along the backers with update after update with no actual plans to really do much with that project at all. Project Phoenix was essentially going to just be a front to collect money for a project that was a little less ambitious, a little easier to create. And Tariq goes on Facebook completely exposing all of this. And we're really taking their word for it because there's no concrete evidence about this. But that didn't really stop everyone, forums, online, from getting really mad because everyone wants Project Phoenix done for the most part. If you backed it back in 2013, guys, is a while ago, you might be wondering where this project went, what happened, because again, big promises were made because they were going to do things like use music composers from Square Enix, ex-Square Enix projects. They're going to have employees from there come in, employees from Blizzard. It was going to be kind of an all-star team that they could assemble to build this game, and people were extremely excited. But we've been waiting years, and there's been no tangible demo, no great looking gameplay or anything. It's kind of stalled out. Now this of course comes back to the person at the head of the Project Phoenix, then at the head of Area 35, which is the development team behind Tiny Metal, and that's Hiroki Yura. Hiroki Yura formed Area 35 to then develop Tiny Metal. Tiny Metal was a much smaller in scope game and was more of an Advanced Wars type project compared to what Project Phoenix appears to be, which is a very expansive, very in-depth RPG. So Tiny Metal gets finished. It's out the door, but they're still dealing with all of this. So because of what's happening, it appears that they are going to be suing Tariq for defamation. At least that's what they've said now on a Steam community board. They have responded. Hiroki seems to actually be posting below that even. I have also reached out to them for a comment because they have shared documentation with GameSpot, documentation that they cannot put out to the public. It's confidential due to the courts and everything that's going on in Japan under the law. They cannot show this publicly, but according to this, GameSpot ran an entire article. I'll leave a link down in the description if you guys want to check it out. Pretty much backing Area 35, Hiroki Yura, everything about what they're saying essentially, that Tariq is sharing false information because they are a disgruntled ex-employee. Now this was taken from their Steam community post that they made that really try to give backstory and defend themselves from what appear to be on their side accusations that are not at all credible. This is what they said. Despite presenting evidence to the falsehood of Tariq's accusations, his lies have been repeated and have deterred potential players from enjoying Tiny Metal. We have shared confidential evidence to members of the press leading to GameSpot confirming that Tiny Metal never once used Project Phoenix funding. Tiny Metal has only ever used outside sources of funding. Our staff have personally gone through considerable sacrifices and hardship to bring Tiny Metal to life. To claim that we used Project Phoenix development funds to create Tiny Metal is an insult to all developers who have made these sacrifices. Now they go on from there saying that they are expecting to go to court over this to essentially, I assume, sue them over defamation and potential losses of this game, damages from, I guess, people saying, well, I don't want to buy that if they really are siphoning money from Project Phoenix because, well, that's not right, obviously. And they, according to them, say this never happened. We have all the documentation to prove it, and it's all confidential now because of the Japanese law and them going to court for this. So this is going to be an interesting thing to follow and see what ends up happening. According to them, though, Tariq is kind of stringing this out by avoiding, well, any I guess any request to show up to court or really to get the legal process going. I assume summons or in general just talking to them. They're pretty much ignoring everything. So it looks like they're going to have to forcibly go to court over this to prove if they really are innocent, to prove their innocence, because if they have documentation that can prove it, then once it comes out to the public, yeah, great. Everyone will know that you are telling the truth. But would it be too late then? Would Tiny Metal be tainted too much, in people's eyes? I saw people on the Steam community board that just don't seem to believe them at all. So unfortunately, the documents that are confidential right now that could possibly prove their innocence, we can't read them. So we don't know. We're all in the middle now just trying to figure out who's telling the truth. So we're going to keep an eye on this, and hopefully when the court date settles, they get it all done, they can release all these documents to the public, because once it's entered into the court system, we can look at it essentially. So we'll see what happens. And like I said, I reached out to them. They apparently have documentation that they can show members of the press under some sort of, I guess, NDA or something to keep everything confidential. If they want to show me, I'd be more than happy to come back on here on Newswave and give my take on it while being vague, I guess, and letting you guys know if, yeah, they're innocent or not. So we'll see, but I'll keep you guys posted. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave today. If you enjoyed the video, guys, hit the like button. Really helps out. If not, hit dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about this Tiny Metal situation even. Maybe you were looking at it, then you see these allegations, you go, I don't want to buy in because I don't want to support something that could be really deemed, I guess at this point, illegal or fraud or unlawful. Who knows at this point? But maybe those turned you off from buying it. And at this point, we don't even know. So let me know what you think about all of that, because it is a very interesting situation. I mean, of course, one of the first Sony game from Sony Unties going to the Switch is really just entangled in all of this. Of course, why not, right? And then also let me know what you think about Nintendo's plans to sell 20 million Switch units next fiscal year. Do you think they need a big release like a Metroid or a Pokemon to do this? And if Pokemon does come out next fiscal year, do you think they're undercutting themselves, underselling this? Because at that point, I don't see why they couldn't touch 23, 24, 25 million Switches in the fiscal year. I mean, it might come down to manufacturing, but let me know, guys, because I'm curious. And of course, the AA game from Platinum, maybe that's got you excited like it does me, because man, if we have a big game like that come out, like a AA game that's 7, 8 million and 20-person team, and it turns out like something like Hellblade in terms of its success, that could really set the mark for the rest of the gaming development world. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend, guys. I will see you back here on Monday.